session at 10:02. All right. You all set?
Yeah.
Okay. Roll call.
Touch machine.
Here.
Sanders.
Here.
Howden. You say after 80?
80. Here.
Jeremiah Jackson.
Here.
Laura Ball.
Here.
Wendy Ball.
Here.
Stevie. How do you say that last name?
Rajan.
Rajan.
Here.
Okay. So, there is no public here, so I guess we don't really need public comment.
Public comment? Great.
Well, I wanted to make a quick
Oh.
public comment.
Public comment over here.
I'm not going to be here for the whole meeting. Chris Christensen, General Manager. Just want to say thank you all for coming here and being part of this committee. It's important. It's going to save some time for us in the offices and our projects and whatnot. We have a lot of, as you can see in this packet and in the strategic plan, there's a lot going on for the Parks and Rec Department here at the RID. So it's a big job. And it's a little bit of thankless task. So we definitely appreciate what you guys are doing, what you're about to do, and I'll be here for you. Just not the whole meeting today, but I want to say thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been a lot.
May I also add all you do for committee, also for the community in general. My suggestion is from the agenda item, moving the election of the chairperson towards the end of the meeting, only because I'm suggesting we probably may have to have some understanding what's our responsibilities as a committee, the expectations are, or some sort of a decision framework, because it looks like no shortage of ideas. Anybody I talk to, usually, oftentimes we get like stuck with the different opinions and ideas and go a different direction. So maybe like a 5-point decision maker, so we have a framework to decide and before we vote on issues. That's all. Thank you.
We kind of need the chairperson of
The chairperson will run the meeting. So kind of nice to have it at the beginning of the meeting.
And they don't like
It's
have
not-
any special power,
No,
I
they
don't think,
don't.
right?
No.
Actually, the one thing wasn't it that they have to report to the RID board. So whoever is the
Oh,
chair
okay.
has to be at the RID meetings to just report what the findings are for here. So that would
I
probably
don't
be the
even
biggest
think
responsibility.
It has to be a board, an RID board member.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Anybody.
you guys can, yeah. Assuming, are you
Basically, we could
interested?
discuss- Can we, is it okay? It's all right for us to discuss right now, what's expected from the chairperson
Yeah, I can read it.
And also the committee too, please.
in the committee as
That's the whole
itself.
expectation.
Yeah, let's go.
Is this yours?
No, we're sharing. Oh no, you have
She
your
needs,
own.
I have mine.
Oh, you can take it.
You can take this one.
Okay, cool, thanks. You want me to do it or? So in discussion, we'll discuss the committee chairperson. We'll also go over the purpose of this committee.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Happy New Year.
So the original inspiration of this committee is to help give a platform for the community. As you can see, no public here at the moment, but hopefully we will start bringing in more public community members to engage with the Parks and Rec side of the district. The reason why this committee has been formed is because over the years, the Parks and Rec part of the district takes up a large amount of time of the general manager. And quite frankly, to be honest, it's time that he doesn't really have, or they don't really have, because we have other larger actual infrastructure projects that need to be addressed. But there's so much time that they're having to put into the Parks and Rec. And on top of that, we also want to make sure that our discussions are public so people can hear what's being said and talked about. and what ideas are out there publicly, not just one-on-one with the general manager, but also with the whole community, right? And so ideally, this committee has been formed to kind of help filter some of the ideas, narrow them down, and bring them to the board, the district board. With that said, it's also hopefully taking a little bit more off of the general manager's plate. I will say that it doesn't take anything off of the office staff's plate. In fact, we are adding more to that. So thank you, Jessica.
Yeah.
And we're sorry.
Absolutely.
And we're not here to make decisions. You know, we're not making any like concrete decisions. There are going to be suggestions going to the board, to the district board. We don't have any other power other than that. And so it's really just a time that we can really look at the strategic plan, the recreation strategic plan, and identify what the district can actually do. And then some that sounds like great ideas, but may be better for the private sector. And so we'll be looking at the strategic plan and going up. Sounds like your dog. And so really, you know, we do fall under the Brown Act. So I think that's probably the biggest responsibility for us is that when we leave here, we can't all be discussing the Parks and Rec ideas and stuff like that amongst ourselves. You can do it. You can, like, if a community member comes to you and, you know, expresses something that they have opinion on, you can discuss it that way. You just can't go to Wendy and say, oh yeah, so and so came to me. Yeah, it's chairperson to chairperson. So I think that comes with you know, that's a lot of responsibility, but it's necessary so that we keep everything in the public. Do you have any other questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, so that's the inspiration of this committee. We've had some projects that are done that without having public input, really, and so this is that opportunity so we can have public input on those projects as well. And then the chairperson is just the person that does the gavel and makes sure that the reports are submitted, the committee reports are being submitted in a timely fashion to Jessica so she can get them into the district board packet. And so yeah, does anybody have any questions?
And are they going to be taking notes? Is that like the report that you're talking about?
Yeah.
Or, okay. So whoever the chair is going to be taking notes.
So, yeah, minutes. I know.
I mean, I'm
think
gonna
just-
do minutes, but that's, minutes are very simplified, really.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
basically, it describes as clearly and concisely as possible the action that is taken. It doesn't necessarily encompass the discussion that happens.
Who says what?
With the main takeaways.
Whoever is chair will need to be taking notes. If it is recorded, it is that's kind of helpful because then whoever is chair can also go back and just make sure they heard whatever they heard. So, yeah. Okay. Moving on to our little. So that way they can be responsible. Okay, so.
Is there any further questions about the role of the chairperson?
So being at the RID meetings, do you always have to be there in person or you can also be on Zoom?
You can attend on Zoom, but they wouldn't be a board member at that meeting, so their address wouldn't have to be published on that agenda. On the agenda for this meeting, your address, if you're not
Right.
attending.
Gotcha.
So the board, if you're not a regular board.
Right. It would
So
just
then
be-
it's just for this particular meeting.
Mhm.
So they can attend on Zoom pretty easily.
Yeah, without
Okay,
having to
cool.
publish. What we're having right now, like we have Jerry Jackson.
I remember, yeah, we talked about it. At the
Yeah,
agenda
and so
meeting.
he, you know, and it's hard because you don't necessarily want to put your home address out there.
Mhm.
You know.
But it wouldn't be necessary for that.
Yeah.
report.
Jerry, do you have any questions?
Already.
Any questions from Jerry?
Was I asked if I have any questions?
Yes.
Okay, no, I don't. I apologize for not being there. I had a prearranged doctor appointment down in San Diego today. So unfortunately, I can't be there in present. So my apologies.
We appreciate you tuning in as you can. Okay, so moving on, let's discuss, or anybody would like to be chair? Anybody? Rock, paper, scissors, it out.
It's not gonna be me.
What
I
was
got a
your thought?
full-time
You
job.
brought it up.
It's gonna be.
If I can do it through Zoom, I can do it, because I just can't
I'm
do
just trying to
Pioneer.
see like what
Right.
the expectations and responsibilities
You know, but
are.
I can.
And
sometimes
Also,
for the
before
meeting,
that person takes on the responsibility, I was trying to see like, can we agree on a framework, how we vote on things?
Well, that's what we will be when we start looking at where we're going to be focusing.
And I think honestly,
But-
like we'll, like Tasha and I were even discussing, like maybe we could do like alternate reports. Like I think will be very helpful. I don't think anyone should feel like, oh, this is gonna just all be thrown on you, right? We were
Yeah.
kind of like, we just want to make this work. So if you want to try it, and then I mean, we can always, you know, a year from now, if you're like, you know, things have changed, I think we should be flexible, right?
Yeah.
Because we
Yeah.
want people to participate and not
Yes.
feel like this is all on you. So yeah, if you want to start,
Yeah, I
that
want
would
to
be-
propose
I'll start. I will.
Your volunteers.
I will volunteer. Yeah,
Okay,
thank
so
you. You're
does
welcome.
somebody want to nominate?
I nominate Laura.
You want to second
I
that?
want to.
I don't know if we.
Okay, we'll roll call vote this, but in general, you guys don't.
We won't have to.
So this will probably be the only time you guys can vote on it.
Let's do it right
Oh,
now.
okay.
Let's do it again. The scrapbook.
Hi.
Kristen Sanders,
Aye.
Todd Acey,
Aye.
Jeremiah Jackson,
I,
Laura Ball, Wendy Ball,
Aye.
and the
Rajan. I.
Motion carries.
Yay.
Gavel.
Thank you, Laura.
Yeah.
You're the
Alright.
power.
One action or one thing done. Okay.
Mrs.
Ball.
So we have this, it looks like,
that, Laura.
uh,
session is a regular meeting time.
yes, so we need to discuss and pick a regular meeting time, day of the week. May I comment on that real quick? It typically, I think, so that we get everything to the office, it'll probably need to be the first week of the month, so we can get everything done in a timely frame. And you know, there has been discussion about wanting to do it off Apple can attend. However, that is, if we do have Jessica in attendance, that's overtime for her. And quite frankly, I don't know that she needs.
Yeah, it would have to be discussed with Chris to see if I could even do that or transition my hours and which ways we could.
Well, we could also do town halls at a different time, right? Like every
we
once
wanted
in a
to.
while, if we wanted to involve the community. Right? We could do it like maybe once a quarter or something like that. So then
Yeah.
the village feels involved and not like, oh, I can't make this, you know?
Yeah.
That might be more impactful also, especially for this kind of thing, I think.
And then we would also have more to bring to the public after we've been meeting, and whoever shows up to these meetings. But then, you know, if we do it every quarter or whatnot, then we would be able to have probably more substantial information to bring to the public.
Yeah, I like that.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Does that work for you?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Okay, so basically we need to pick a day of the week that works for everybody in this committee.
What day is it today? Thursday?
Today is,
Fine.
Does that
This is
work?
working fine for me.
Does that work for you?
Yeah.
are you sure you had mentioned?
No, it's not a problem. I'll make it work around on my schedule.
Okay. I'm fine with
may
Thursday.
I,
Yes.
you mind if I throw in a thought?
Please do.
I travel a lot on business. I own my own engineering company, and I have a lot of projects outside of Shelter Cove that requires me to be on the road a lot. And I do my best to arrange my work schedule around the RID meeting, which is the third Thursday. And I would like it very much if we can make this meeting relatively close in time to the RID meeting. Right now, as we sit, it's the first Thursday, and there's a 2-week gap there. And it's really hard for me to juggle all the balls to make 2 meetings like that far apart to ensure that I can make it. And believe me, I do not want to be doing this by Zoom every time. It's not quite as good. So if at all possible, if we could do a different Thursday, maybe the first Thursday or the third Thursday, to make it within a week of the RID meeting, either before or after, that would be great. But having it 2 weeks off makes it really difficult for me to be there, in person. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. I think we also have 2 board members on here. So having it too close to the RID meeting, it doesn't give us, the 2 board members on here, doesn't really give us enough time to get prepared for the RID board, at least from my perspective. I think I'm down with the first Thursday of the month. We could handle that, or maybe even the last Thursday of the month. That's after the board meeting. And it would just be longer period of time. But I kind of, but then it's also for those of us who are doing the board meeting, the district board meetings, the following, it's a lot. So I'm kind of thinking for us, or for myself, what would work, and you guys can chime in, please, would be the first Thursday of the month, and just keep it at that, which is today. Anybody?
I liked the sound of the last Thursday also. So I would like to stay either first or last. I think that everyone needs time to take what we've given to be able to present it to the board. And I don't know that enough time. The second week might be 2. And the Pioneers is the second week as well, but that's in the evening. So if we did it, but it is a lot. But I could just get it all done on Monday. But it is, yeah. I don't know if
And we
given
also
enough time,
need to
is what
have
I'm
things
saying.
ready for her.
Right.
Give Jess as much time.
I would definitely say the second Thursday would make it impossible to have anything
Yeah.
ready.
Okay.
Well, I think that's a tough day, excuse me. That's a tough day anyway, because we're talking about doing a night meeting every quarter, and that's gonna fall right onto you guys.
Pioneers,
So, right on the Pioneers.
I'm fine with the first or the fourth.
I think that the
Whatever
4th
works.
sounds like it works for Mr. Jackson, and gives you actually more time than, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Whoever's doing the.
So I think that,
So maybe the 4th.
I'm very flexible. It makes no difference, but yeah.
Okay, that works for me.
What time works for you guys?
Does 10 still work for everybody? Yeah. Okay, 10 a.m.
And then on a quarterly basis, we're gonna go till at 6
Maybe
o'clock.
6 p.m., like 6 to 8 p.m. Town hall. We can have coffee, tea, and snacks.
And then I think that we probably should start that the next meeting. You know what I mean? And that would be the end.
I should double check the community center calendar before. I mean, we can do it here.
Yeah, I think that would be fine.
Okay.
I think that would be fine. So 10 a.m. Oh, did we say 4th Thursday? Yeah. Or is that, how does that sound to you, Jerry?
That sounds really good. Thank you. I appreciate your cooperation.
For us.
Okay, perfect. Oh, look, we do have a numbers.
Awesome. Welcome.
We were saving it for you.
Well, that's good. Seats over there.
Since you're the chair, you're supposed to be this one.
Yep.
Next, oh, we did that.
And we did that. Okay, then we have the Parks and Rec strategic plan.
Yeah, so.
Excuse me. Don't we have to have a motion? Don't we have to approve of that meeting time and all that, go through a motion and a vote or not?
Technically, I think that you guys aren't taking any action, so you guys giving your recommendation to the RAD board of holding it, and then the RAD board
Will
I guess,
approve it.
Approve it.
Yeah, these are all recommendations. We're not really making any real decision. It'll be codified with the RID board. Does that make sense?
They're not going to disagree. This will be. At least I don't think they will.
Yeah,
Could be
right?
wrong.
Fingers crossed.
All right.
Okay, so Jessica, you're gonna introduce the strategic plan.
Yeah, for those of you who haven't been to the regular board meetings, something that's been ongoing for a few months now. The Parks and Rec strategic plan has been presented at the last two board meetings for our board of directors comments. But the board was also hoping that this committee could take a deeper look into the plan and make suggestions or maybe prioritize a little bit as well what we want to look at. And since it is a very large document, I think that I would recommend the same approach that our board's been doing, is taking a look at one section of the strategic plan at a time. But you guys are going to take this strategic plan and look at sections of it in more detail. I think it's easier than sort of being scattered over various subjects. So I think today is a good time to take a look at what all is in there, and then maybe think about what sort of plan of attack you guys would like to have at going. Would be my recommendation. Feel free to discuss.
That sounds great. This is a chewy document with all kinds of fun stuff in there. I think prioritizing sounds like a great first place to start.
I think so as well, yes.
Yeah, I almost think just like in the order that it is right now. I mean, start with the golf course since that's already there.
I might say start with the community center, or at least put that up there as a great central location to radiate from.
Like bringing back the plans for the old communities.
I have no idea what the history of that is, so I don't know what that really means. But I just think that if we're gonna radiate an awesome hub from the community center,
Yeah.
that maybe taking a look at how functional that can be with all the things coming in around it.
Cool. Okay, well, we have, let's see here. Oh, here we go. Assess the clubhouse. That's almost.
Well, I think
Yeah,
the
it kind of goes
clubhouse, the golf course, the beach
Coral Point,
access.
and then the community center. So what are you thinking, like?
So should we just go down these one by one and kind of start rating them, and then we can kind of go back through them and judge them and kind of finalize it a little bit? Okay, great. So let's do that. So I'm just going to start going down these one by one. Okay. So improve the playing experience. To enhance the golf course. There will be improve the playing experience, attract more golfers, increase revenue, improve the irrigation system, beautify the course. I think we can probably prioritize that pretty high and get it done. What do you guys think? Should we put that like in the top
It
five?
would be awesome. Yes.
Top five, and we'll start there, and then we can actually assign them numbers as we go through. Okay, so the next one is encourage recreation and the arts and nature. So we have enhanced hiking trails, improved beach access, assess green belts for improvements and or development, and then assess the Coral Point with the river. Is that it? Oh no. Assess the children's playground, assess labyrinth, assess the possibility of public art. So what do we think about that?
I mean, I like the idea of definitely getting the beach access restored. And I would be curious what their ideas with the Coral Point is, because I mean, that's what I would like. Yeah, to just see what they want to do with Coral Point, what the
Especially
plan is.
after the rains with what's happening with Little Black Sands.
Yeah.
People even being able to access that now is definitely, I think, a big priority for us for tourism too.
even with the lighthouse, I mean, I don't know who talks to BLM, but gosh, I mean, it would be so nice to have stairs back. I mean, it's worse now than before they took it out.
Yeah.
It's more dangerous.
It's like
Yeah.
People are
slip and
sliding.
slide.
And it keeps people from going down. I've
Yeah,
seen
and
elderly
it's
not
like
take
that's
that
our
walk.
main draw, like
Yeah.
beaches, and we only can really access one. I mean, you can kind of, they did kind of put in stairs, but yeah, that should be.
Yeah.
So I think the playground's great though. I don't know if there's much to.
I think that's something to check with with the staff to see what needs to be
I
done.
believe the time that you do the right?
And for liability.
It's been there for that long. We do regular inspections to make sure that everything is working and functioning. Different people have different opinions on the aim, so I think that's the main reason why it's not in there is because some people feel it's time to upgrade or improve. It is expensive.
Yeah.
There are grants out there for such things. It was a grant. It's the same grant fund that's funding the sports courts that funded this.
I'd like to see the improvement on airports amenities.
As a priority.
As a the top 5 maybe.
That's interesting. I
Yeah.
love reading that.
So top 5 would be, so far we got the golf course.
Yeah,
Where did we think
sure.
this nature trail fits in with the priorities? That cluster of items. Mid-high, mid-low. I think it doesn't generate money is the first thing I thought. I mean, it's definitely necessary. I was under the impression that we were trying to get the money flowing.
We are.
So for me, I might put that. It is a priority, yes, but maybe a little lower.
I would put that as like probably number 5.
Yeah.
And
I'm not ready to rank it yet, but maybe just in the lower
Depends
echelon.
what it is. Like some of these things are really tiny, like assess the existing signage, right? Include an option of adding maps. Like that wouldn't be a hard thing to do, you know?
I feel like Scarf has some maps of the
Yeah.
Didn't I see that on the website?
I think so.
That I maintain. I'll have to look at that.
I mean, but maybe some of these things, it's not like we have to do all of them, but some of them may be doable, you know? I mean, maintenance plan it's definitely a thing, that we need to figure out who's gonna maintain that. With volunteer groups.
Children's
see what
playground, you're
else.
talking about maintenance?
Enhance the hiking trails. Pretty much, honestly, everything I've read kind of has a maintenance, something that needs to be figured out on who's gonna maintain
Yeah.
what. I think almost every objective item has that. Let's see what else does it have. Access to the existing trails, improving mental access for all ages and abilities. Yeah, so I could see that being an issue. It's ADA compliance getting to those trails, or people with disabilities or children.
Yeah, that's gonna take
safety
money.
handrails. That's a lot of money, and that's a lot of work.
Definitely a grant.
Yep.
Definitely a grant.
I don't know. So in my opinion, I feel like, this community is going to last for like a year or two. So we should really just focus on the things that we, I mean, that we feel like we can make an impact on. That's why personally, I think golf course, I think airport, and I think Coral Point.
And
That would
beach.
be my 3, just because I feel like there's already like, they're already there. We can actually like make some progress with them. And I mean, it'd be nice if the golf course could generate money, or if the airport could, generate a little bit more money. And I think that also is going to like bring in tourism, which is something I think that we need to like focus on. Like this is recreation for Shelter Cove, but it's also recreation for people who are coming out of the area. And yeah.
The airport too, like if you could have a fuel station, we'll get a lot more people. Let's say somebody from Utah wants to fly in here, they have to stop at Garberville to refuel and go back. Instead, if you have a fuel station, that would bring a lot of visitors.
I question very much, and we need to get some answers about the restrictions that we have in the tsunami zone and the airport zone. Because although that's a great idea, I'm pretty sure they're not gonna let us bury those tanks in the tsunami zone. Just saying, because of the fact of secondary containment will be lost once a wave came in and got it. I'm not sure about that, but these are one of the things we talked earlier about, the fact of we need to make a central hub around the community center. I question if that's our best strategy because of the fact of the tsunami zone and the airport gives us great restriction on what we can do down there. And it just is one of those things that as we move forward, I think that we should really entertain an idea of moving out of the tsunami zone. You know what I mean? That doesn't, unfortunately, that doesn't include our, you know what I mean, our clubhouse, which frankly I use a lot.
Right.
But the thing is that how we're going to maintain a recreational area down there is beyond me, to be honest with you, because of the restrictions that we have. And I want to know that exactly those restrictions. You know what I mean? How many people can we have in that building at daytime? How many can we have at night?
What would be Plan B as a location for
You know what? We've got a lot of area out there that would be interesting if we looked at. You know what I mean? As we move forward, I can see these maps and I don't necessarily know what they mean, but I'm going to find out because we have a ton of areas that we could use, I believe. I could be wrong, but I think that we really need to look at that as the beginning of a better strategic plan because you know what I mean? So many things are limited down there because of the fact of height, of number of people that can be there. And you know what I mean? We'd like to have something that's sort of centralized. You mentioned that.
I mean, I'm going to disagree. I think that having things centrally located in one area makes it easier for like a parent and also for grandparents and visiting people. Like someone could be playing pickleball and then someone can be playing golf. And I do agree that we do need to eventually look at outer areas, but like for right now, I think we really need to like focus on what we have down there. And I understand that that is assuming there are restrictions, but I do believe that there are ways around them, and that's part of our committee purpose is to not be restricted by what we see as like the problem and like, okay, how are we going to actually make this happen for the community?
It also has to make sense for the community too.
Yeah.
And
So it has to do both things. My concern, besides the tsunami zone, is wind. Wind with pickleball, wind with,
Yeah,
how's
but
that
that
going to
also
work?
like rain.
Um,
I mean,
Yeah,
that's like
right.
also
And then
just
also
like
a
the
whole bunch of
weather here.
concrete. That's a whole bunch of concrete. There are alternatives to concrete where we could do something kind of eco-friendly. I mean, I think our biggest thing here is ecotourism.
I agree with that. And
Um,
honestly, I will say that like I don't really think that's any of our business to be deciding what these things are going to be constructed. We're trying to like set forth a plan and not get like stuck in the weeds on stuff like that. So as a committee, I think we should really be focusing on these things and like if we're going to jump on them or not, but not like, oh, it needs to be made of this, material and da da da. Like we will have a grant funder and that will all be like part of that, for the construction people.
And that's
And so it's too specific. Like this is like part of the problem. Like one of the reasons nothing ever gets done is because we focus too much on these tiny little things when that is part of like the construction process. And we're trying to like get big picture, like how are we going to fund these projects? I mean, honestly, I would like to talk about a parcel tax that helps with recreation. We're going to be, like that would be an interesting idea. Like what if every parcel had to pay $25 and then that could be used for maintenance of like the golf course and also whatever recreation things. Like I think we need to really have like a big picture, like,
Is there precedence for that in the area?
I mean,
Parcel taxes?
I mean, they're going to have a utility tax coming up. They have the fire tax. Like
that is
I
going to
think-
need to be re-upped as well. So
I'm not saying like even now, but like I do feel like as like a committee, we should also be exploring like how would we fund these things, And like another thing we need to think about too is adding these like the clubhouse. That's going to bring up everyone's property taxes, and I'm not sure how much the revenue is from RID that they get from like property taxes to like run RID, but like if you bring up everyone's property taxes, that's going to also benefit RID more. So also would we want to put in these projects, we have to think about like how those will affect, the community at large for the good. It may seem like, oh, what are we doing spending all this money on this clubhouse? But then it's like brings up everyone's property taxes. RID benefits from that. And so, just And that's great. And then more people want to, like, hopefully build their houses here and, like, and support the businesses here, because, we all think that, oh, they have a business. Like, if you run a business out here, it is not easy. And so we really need to think about bringing in other people. Like, we love our locals, but, like, honestly, I feel like a lot of the businesses can't depend on the locals because the economy has changed so much. So that's my thought.
I hear you.
Sorry.
Sorry. No,
Oh,
appreciate that. You go ahead.
Oh, okay. You go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Well, one second, Jerry. One thing, and I'm glad you brought this up. As far as finding out what can we do in that if we were consolidating a lot of our projects down in that area by the airport, because that would go. There are, like you were saying, Tristan. There's ways. We have a lot of problems, but there's ways that they can be addressed. And so, what I would like to see is that the district moving forward with seeking variances for the properties down there, so that we can put in infrastructure down there that is basically going to enable the community to use that area in the way that the community is wanting, which is group activities and so forth. So the variances are going to be a huge thing to move forward with if we're really looking at that area being the mainstay for our recreation. With that said, yeah, we have a lot of property taxes is one way, but again, we have to make sure that what we are doing with that is benefiting everyone in the community. We are a public agency. We're not a tourism association. And, a lot of people might be feeling like their property taxes are high enough at the moment. So it's when we do go for parcel taxes for recreation. I know our infrastructure is also going to be needing an increase in that department. And so it's going to be, and it has to be passed by a vote of community members that live here. And that's going to be I think it is going to be a hard sell if we're saying it's just for recreation. I don't think we would be able to.
Well, I don't want to shoot
What
it down
about-
until we put it.
Yeah.
What about just
Let's
crushing grants,
Jackson.
looking for grants?
Yeah.
Let's listen to him.
Jerry?
Yeah, go ahead, Jerry.
I was going to ask two questions and maybe make a suggestion. One is, what is the RID board expecting from us relative to the strategic plan? Is it filling out this form that we have in front of us? And perhaps, I don't know, adding actions or deleting some or adding timelines. Maybe we can get some clarification of what our product, what our committee product would look like and what RID is expecting. And then the second thing I want to suggest is maybe I'm going down here and counting, there are 4 goals and there's a number of objectives for each one. And it looks like there's maybe a half dozen objectives for each one. Maybe what we do, if indeed our mission is to look at the action items and adjust those, maybe what we do is we assign or volunteer, we each take an objective or 2 or 3, and then come back next meeting with our thoughts on the action items. Should they be modified? Should we add an action item, delete one, or whatever? But I think first of all, we need to know what our products should look like. What is RID expecting of us? And then secondly, I would suggest we divide it up and give us each a handful of these to pursue over the next few weeks. Thank you.
Jerry, before you go, do you have anything to add about fuel at the airport and whether you know anything about whether tanks would be allowed in the area?
Yeah. First of all, that's what my company does. We do underground storage tanks, above ground storage tanks, all over the country. And I would recommend it against either one of those. I mean, there are airports nearby. I always fuel up at, either Little River or Garberville or, head up north. There are a number of airports nearby, and a pilot should be able to figure that out and not rely on us for fuel. Because again, it's an environmental liability when you start putting a fuel tank in. and I would not recommend it. The other thing I want to point out is I got a map of the tsunami zone right in front of me here. I'm working on a disaster preparedness report for the Cove, and there's a report published by Humboldt State, and the airport is not in the tsunami zone. So just so you know, it pretty much is anything from lower Pacific to the ocean, but anything further north and east of that, including the airport, is not in the tsunami zone, including the clubhouse. So I'd recommend that if nothing else, we get our hands on some of these documents to educate us about are we in what zone or not. So anyway, getting back to the fuel, no, I would advocate against it.
Thank you for that, Jerry. I think they must have adjusted the tsunami zone, because before it, just within the last couple of years, it was up to Upper Pacific Drive. That's so this must be a new adjustment.
No, you might be ahead of me there, Natasha. I'm staring. This thing's published 2020, so I'll do my work and get a better, more accurate, more updated.
Yeah, if you could, that would be great, because I know that it was at Upper Pacific, and that was part of some issues we had with the community center. But I do like your objective. Yes.
Yeah, so I am going back to Jerry's point about our expectation, our product, and also like how we make those decisions. So let's say somebody come in and make a proposal, just like the fuel station.
Yeah.
You have something? Yes. Okay. So we probably have to have something like a decision framework for us, like questions like how are we going to fund this, whether it's grant or some agency like SCARF do fundraising, or Visit Shelter Cove, the tourism organization, do the fundraising for that project. Related nonprofits, not a burden on them. And then, like Jerry was suggesting, we need to have like a volunteer from the board, maybe also from the community. I mean, classic example is Mike Bruno, very knowledgeable about the sports project he was proposing last board meeting, and he could be one of those community sponsor or community member, kind of taking a lead on the total project. It could be Arlen for some other project. Arlen has so many ideas and has done tremendous amount of work in the past, So I highly recommend maybe a volunteer from the board, like committee, not from board, committee, and a volunteer from the community, kind of take a lead on that project. For example, the ones Tristan was suggesting, some of the projects, we could have somebody from the board volunteer take a lead on that. And sorry, I keep going back to board committee. The committee can decide that. So how the funding will be doing, will this help the community? That's why we do a community meeting. So in the community forum, we present, and if we have a majority and then we could send out a survey, and if the majority we could move on and recommend to the committee, recommend to the board. So the project lead or the community lead is an important thing, and then that person could go on and do more research on whether there's a grant funding available or some of the nonprofits willing to take this burden on them. I strongly recommend not to increase the rates of RID to do these things, because that's people are already not very happy with it. From a general opinion, I mean, it has to go up for infrastructure upgrade and things like that. All of these should be we should focus on some of the exactly. So if we have like a fundraisers like that. Oh no, I was talking about like doing the lunch, like dinner, and then kind of like community dinners where we fundraise for GoFundMe type thing. We could do that too. Private people could raise the funds for that kind of project. And so we have like 6 or 7 items, and if it meets all the criteria, we could vote as a committee to whether to do this as a recommendation to the board and save their time.
Yeah, I do like that. I would I think it's important though that the board is giving direction as to what is being looked at, as far as like if you have a private group of people working on something and then it comes to the board and the board's like, well, we really aren't able to do that, then these private people might be getting offended or just misunderstand why the district can't go that route, and they've done all this work prior. So I just want to make sure that there's still direction being given from the district, because ultimately even when we have volunteers, it ultimately ends up, the responsibility and liability always ends up on the district. And so that's just something that I would be concerned about, just doing kind of like a free-for-all, going out to the community saying, oh yeah, you guys come up with something, work on it, then bring it back to us, when it might just not even be in the district's purview or best interest when it comes to liability.
Right. So we will be the committee and we have that report,
Yeah.
and our
Then we
plan is
can
constantly
make that.
communicating
I
with
like
the
that.
board.
Yeah.
And then we have community input from the quarterly meeting, or we could have even a special meeting. We don't have to have quarterly fixed. Jessica.
I just wanted to add in, on getting community feedback. Obviously, community buy-in is huge on any project, but one of the ways that has been discussed and ways to get it besides public forum or public meetings, community meetings, or that is also the possible production surveys that go out with our RID bills. So if you guys want to survey community members, that's something that we can help facilitate.
I would think that that's something we should do right away.
Yeah.
I like
You know what
that.
I mean, I think that was on my back of my mind, that we should try to send that out. And I don't think we can get it out this month, can we?
Bills will be going out around the 8th. I mean, if you guys wanted to sit down and come up with a survey.
What was the last
quickly.
survey that we used? Sorry to interrupt. We had one that we sent out years ago. Could you find that? That was a pretty good survey, and it asked people the general questions that we would have.
It was kind of, well, they did a survey for the sports court when we got that grant, because when we got the grant, we didn't have a project.
I think that this was
Was there
before this.
even before then?
Before that, we had an actual, what would you like to see? And of course, everyone wanted a swim pool. But, you know, it's that situation that, you know what I mean? We still would like to see what we can see.
Yeah.
Getting feedback from the
So
communities
maybe-
where we're at.
So how about a survey going out to the community for what would they like to see for Parks and Rec?
Yeah.
Make it as
And
general
there's
as that.
options that we can do it as an online survey, and it'll collect the data automatically.
I would
Essentially, but a
probably-
lot of people don't like to go online, so.
So maybe both, would we just do both? Like maybe out in the bills and out and online?
Yeah, and I think that it's probably easier in certain ways to have it as options to select instead of leaving it as a free.
Right.
It's hard to get the data together if everybody just writes whatever they want. I think filling the survey with those projects that have been possibly identified already in the strategic plan, or you know, just giving options and maybe allowing a little bit of room for write-in. But if you just let everybody write in, it'll be way too hard to
Quantify.
get that data all put together in a readable format.
Also create more
Should we write it down
administrative.
right now and just get it done then, since we're all talking about it?
Survey type.
How does that sound to you guys?
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it, yeah,
It's just gonna be basic questions, right?
right? Like,
Or probably we could focus more towards the plan also, like we have the recommendations.
yeah, like, I would definitely, right, like, take each
Take
of
each of these, yeah.
all these, whatever,
Maybe
maybe
just the
titles
goals.
and put them.
Yeah,
Just
because
how
there's a
they
lot
rank
of
with people.
objectives,
So
but
maybe just do and just see what they say about the goals. Is that
Yeah,
what
like
you're
golf
saying?
course.
community center, golf course, community center, the nature trail,
Trail and the beach access.
Yeah, that's.
Oh, yes, sorry, go ahead.
The online survey,
Mhm.
one recommendation is have a precursor there. Say, are you a resident or visitor, property owner? Because the problem with some online surveys is you can get 1 million people
Yeah.
from, look how many people are in Shelter Cove, CA, but
Yeah.
we only have 800 residents. So you want to get that information in there. And decide,
Do we
are
do
we going to
custom
prioritize residents, or are we going to prioritize anybody who's interested in coming to Shelter?
Yeah, I like that.
What I'm thinking what we could do is put in a field where they have to fill out, where they have to put in their RID number, their build number.
Well, we can, if it's an online thing, we can just make it simply a checkbox if you're a property owner or a visitor or you live here. Because I live here and I'm not a property, well, I am a property. I don't own a house. But you're probably on property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that might be kind of interesting too,
To-
if a lot
to
of people
also
who have
see-
lots say what they want or
Yeah.
something, or kind of just like, so we can see, I don't know, more than
That's a great, I
person,
like
yeah.
that idea.
Yeah, I like it too.
Mhm.
Because it might be really interesting to see what people who just own property here want to see compared to people who actually live here.
Yeah, because Bill Harris, we obviously know they have a Bill Harris. That's obvious. The online survey, you can get more details. And we can do that through our GIS. And that makes really cool like tables and tables of what goes on with votes and
Cool.
percentages and
It'll be
that's some
interesting.
really interesting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I hardly know it. Just learning it a little bit.
So basically, we're saying that the survey would consist of our already established goals for the strategic plan and see what
Yeah.
basically we
would
would,
leave it open for other new ideas.
and then
too.
miscellaneous or
Yes.
miscellaneous or new ideas.
Mostly selecting from.
And what, rank them on a scale of 1 to 10? How, is this a priority for you?
Being prioritized, I guess, but
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
Because we do only have so much resources and staff time available to do anything.
Exactly.
So it would basically, we'd be sending out and it would have a rating system under each of the goals. Is that what you're suggesting?
Probably, yeah.
That would keep it on
You guys
you.
can go, but I'm not
Easier on you. I know. Easy to quantify
And
that.
then the next meeting, we can take that and kind of figure out how we want to prioritize. After we take some time to do some research on this stuff too, I think.
Oh, and I want and have given presentations to the board. So if you guys are interested, I do have her most recent email and update from what's been going on there. And then we could also invite her to any meeting to come speak if you'd like on that further.
Awesome.
That would be.
Yeah.
I would like that.
Mm-hmm.
She's a great speaker too, and she really has a lot of historical knowledge for that area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jessica, do we have a swimming pool proposal in this one or?
I don't think it's in here, no. I don't think there's been a this proposal. It's generally been shied upon for the most part from the board.
Is there a reason?
For liability and just
Expense.
and
Heating
swamp
is
expensive.
maintenance.
Yeah.
I mean, a whole
I've
bunch of
run pools
things.
before, it's expensive.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's the main is expense and liability.
You got a heater. That's
What
gonna cost
if
you.
like a nonprofit is willing to raise funds for it?
It'd be tough. You know what I mean? We could, I mean, there we are with, again, raising money for it, but I think if there's anything that's gonna take a grant, we are the farthest town that's on the ocean from a swim pool in California, I'm sure of it. You know what I mean? Where is the nearest pool that is actually a public pool? You know what I mean? Yeah.
And then the other thing is finding property that's actually buildable. Like the district has a lot of property, but it's
Right.
not all buildable.
But
And
let's say,
so like where would yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna talk about my thing just for a second. This has been a thing on my mind for a while. The top of hole number 1, you shoot across a private property. There's no place that I've ever played golf in my life to shoot across a private property. At some point, that property right next to the I call it the Philly building is going to be built upon. When it gets built upon, we will have to move the tee box from 1. I think that we should consider moving it now. That piece of property is above the tsunami zone. It's out of the airplane zone. So, I mean, we have a free whatever we want to do on that property. It will take a change from the golf course, but I think that we could figure out a way. At some point, that's going to happen. You know what I mean? At some point, when they get it, that property starts to be built. Hole number 1 is a dog leg, and that whole area up there on the high side will be open for something to be done. You want to show me a picture? Can you give me a picture up there and all of the lower part? I'll show you guys what I'm talking about.
I've done this before.
I didn't take a map.
Playground.
No, they're too small. Those are too small to really be seen.
Does anybody have a good map number?
Hold on.
None of these maps on here are big enough to be able to show it.
So you want to just
Greenbelt area
Honestly,
14.
I would love that. Just because that was the main reason I'm scared.
But
When
it's
we
on
were
the other
kids,
side.
we
Other side.
would nail that place
Oh,
all the
yeah,
time.
no,
And
it's
would
not,
be-
uh,
And it'd be fun to be able to let
Oh,
go and not be a pro and not worry about
17.
hitting.
Are you talking about this stuff?
You talking about this area right here? That land right there?
I'm talking about.
There, that's the private property.
Right next to
Right
Jeep-
here,
Right next to Jeepo.
right here. No, this property right
Oh,
here.
oh, okay.
Because you're
okay.
saying
No,
that
this
this
property
is
right here.
private.
Oh, this way.
See this? You're shooting
17.
across.
Yeah. Well, see, now I think that's a great project. I think these are the kinds of things we should focus on, like bring, because that would change, you know, I feel like that would bring change.
And it's not
And
close.
it's easy to tackle, and I think that will like give us momentum. Like that's the one thing I think we should really try and like, okay, like
The question though is.
and do what with the space.
What's that? We could put a enclosed building there if we wanted to.
Oh, down at the bottom part?
No. Give me the map up before we, that's
An
okay.
enclosed building of what? Are you saying a new community center? What are you thinking would be there?
17.
One that we'd have indoor,
Oh, who wants it? Right here.
I've heard this conversation.
indoor basketball.
Who wants an indoor, who wants that?
Indoor stuff. Well, we'll put that up on a thing. I mean, how do we, who wants a golf course? I mean, same questions there. I mean, we do.
But it's here. A new community center, if you're talking about upgrading community center, I don't know what.
You're talking
Hunting
about,
Oh, I thought you were just talking about moving the tee box
I am.
up to the,
But this whole section right here, see what happens is,
Just make it a little par
here's the tee box,
Oh.
here's the hole.
I mean, that's interesting. I mean, it is out of there.
And you can go on a Saturday and watch them shoot like that.
where are you talking about moving this?
Up to over here somewhere, and then this whole area would be ours.
Use for parks.
Used for whatever recreation that we'd want to do. That would be, I'm talking indoor right now because of the fact that this has limitations and we are not, at some point,
Yeah.
we'll see them the next time because I'm going to ask you guys.
I don't even think
recommendations,
it
but
could
that would
I
not.
don't even think it could be like
And
this.
I'm thinking some
We need
sort
to
of
like go
indoor gymnasium.
take back
of
the
some
plans
sort,
that
you
we
know
were
what I mean?
going to
Some
do.
indoor, I mean, let's be honest, I mean, as we work forward, I mean, the pickleball is wonderful to play, but it ain't playing today. An
You know,
indoor
they're just all of a sudden
facility.
one day,
You
and
know,
they're all.
some complex, something simple, you know what I mean, that would carry that. So,
That's the
I mean,
weird
that
thing.
area
So
is,
there's a function
Yeah.
that could be reduced in
Yeah.
awesome new
Oh,
facility.
totally, yeah.
Just need a space for it.
So we left off
Submit 'em. And that's like,
Just real quick, one thing that we do need to be mindful of while we're doing these discussions is there is the Robert's Rules of Order. And so it is important that we're not over talking each other so that we're all able to hear what's being said. Just FYI.
so there, he's got this up, I wanna just show you guys, because I want everyone on the same page here. Presently, the tee box that exists right here, we shoot across this way, across private property, which, let's be honest, we, nowhere else is in it, you know what I mean? So if we were to take the tee box up here and make it more of a direct line, so that you're not shooting over that private property.
and turn
I
it
know
into
that
a
the
par
golfers
three.
are not gonna be happy about that, but we know that this is gonna happen one day. I mean, it's, at some point, someone is gonna come in there and build on that property. And that's gonna be the end of hole one. We're gonna have to move it at that point. So the question is do we do it now or do we do it later? If we do it now, we could, you put something up there that would be not in the airport zone or the tsunami zone.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion, Todd.
And I think that we need to look at all the other places. I mean, you know what I mean? There's a ton of places.
Another option other than, because I feel like that
I think that
compromises.
that should be something on our list next time, is to talk about those places that we think that we could do recreation. Because just mentioning it again, I sure think that that place that's flat up there that you guys built for the solar panels would be a wonderful place for, but it's away from the central hub that we have. So that's decisions that have to be made. That's a beautiful place
Where are the
up there.
solar panels? I don't know.
Well,
Willow
there's one,
Way.
yeah, but yeah, eventually.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and I think that is some of the feedback we have had from community members, at least as a board member I've had, is that for the people who pay their property taxes and live here outside of the what is referred to as the fishbowl, but more in the higher part of the cove, like where you live, Todd, is people wanting to see some things in those areas that they feel like they're getting, they're receiving benefits for what their property taxes are being paid for. So I do understand that, looking at the whole scope. And again, this is a 2-year committee. Of course, we don't want to take that long for everything, but it'll definitely, I think it does need to be looked at. All the district properties do need to be evaluated. Now, what you're suggesting is, like Tristan said, that's actually a real doable, something that could be probably addressed fairly quickly. Well, fairly quickly in a from a public agency standpoint is still slow, but that I do like that. That's a great starting point. It could be a great starting point, just as far as another.
We're discussing how we make a decision framework so that we could, keep us accountable too. So let's say, can I ask a few questions on this idea?
Yeah.
The one we were suggesting, like, how much it's gonna cost, and how much would be a project like that would be?
Well, I mean, that's where we're going to start from if we're going to do some sort of project that's going to be, encompassed in a closed building. We're going to have to put that together. I have absolutely no idea how much that would cost. But the thing is that, as we push forward, those I know are the things that we want here in the cove. The question is finding the money for it, finding the place for it. When we find the place for it, then we can start the concept of how we're going to do it. We should at some point talk about the ways that we can raise money, whether it's locally here, we talk about grants, but there's bonds also. The last guy that was here talked about how we are not into anything on bonds. And I don't know. I'm just saying those are options that we could do. Again, they're being voted to the people.
I have a follow-up.
What kind of long-term vision? I would actually agree that you want a indoor facility for, if you ever looked at some of these, a swimming pool, gymnasium, and whatever, basketball court or the court for multi-use. And, getting the effort to get like a $1 million grant is not that different than the effort to get a $5 million grant. And, when you're talking about a nice indoor facility with a pool, a gymnasium, and maybe a workout room or whatever, because if you're going to go through that much trouble, then, you're talking $5 million, something like that. And that would be something you put on the survey is, as you have your top, whatever it is, those top 5 priorities, let them rank those, and then say, maybe have a list of other alternatives and have people check them. Indoor pool, indoor gymnasium, indoor workout room and stuff. And so that just wanted to throw that out there. Long-term, you're not going to resolve this in 2 years.
No.
But long-term vision, that could be in this 10-year strategic plan or something.
And that could include an upgraded clubhouse.
But moving
Yes.
I'm still gonna say it's critical. I know your eyeballs are used to the clubhouse, but as a new person coming in, that clubhouse needs help.
No, I do agree with
A
you.
lot of
Yeah.
Moving the tee box
No one's
to the
gonna
other
rent it
location,
for a wedding
Yeah.
right now.
would that require a lot of work? Or
And that would actually be the starting point. It's just getting it moved and getting people used to it, and then going from there.
And I will say that compromises the golf course. The golf course is being compromised. I feel like every year it's getting smaller. The tee box in 5 is no longer where it's supposed to be. And that might be one of my priorities to put on the list, is getting the blue and the white tee boxes back on the other side of the creek where the scorecard tells you you're playing from. That's a golf cart.
Yeah. I do agree though with Todd as far as that whole number 1 is a liability. Like it has trashed the building next to
Yeah, the Philly building.
the Philly building. It has trashed that. We've had a lot of people who've gotten their windshields in their cars messed up from there that they have to pay out of pocket for. From golfers, and the golfers don't. It doesn't come out of the
Well, if
golfers.
they're in the back parking lot.
Yeah. So I do see logistically, I do think that and a liability like it, and eventually it's gonna, like he's saying, it does have to be moved anyway because you aren't supposed to be shooting over private properties. And maybe the sooner we do that, the better to get people used to it. And then we would have that open land that would help. We could put into our strategic plan. Right now, it's not even being added into the strategic plan. So I do like that idea a lot.
And as we're talking about that on another mention I'm going to make is I think that the strategic plan for the golf course has got to have some modifications into a yearly and hit list type of thing. We talked about it, but the method that we're using right now is not successful. It's not successful, and we need to change that method. Most golf courses have a yearly maintenance schedule, and on top of that, they have a hit list of things that need to be done, which Wendy's already mentioned hit list, and then, doing it yearly. And we had a lot of golfers out on Saturday, and ironically, a bunch of us fools got here yesterday.
How many people played?
30 people.
30
played.
Wow. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay,
So awesome. And it just shows you, and has there ever been more women playing in the Hangover? So it just shows you golf is coming up.
Yeah.
So it's time to seize that moment.
I know. We're even watching WNBA now. Go ahead, Sammy.
So just to finish my thought about the swimming pool we were talking about, so I was thinking more like, let's say if RID has a lot next to like a hotel, either oceanfront, Black Sands, or the Lost Coast, because one of the problems with the liability part is nobody's maintaining it, because it will cost RID a lot of money to maintain the heating and all of that. So we could have a facility like the Lost Coast taking on maintenance part of it, and they charge their guests a fee to use the pool, or community a fee to use the pool. It's not a free pool.
It would be pass.
It's gonna be paid. Right. And so the running part of it, RID doesn't have to take on RID's shoulder. Instead, one of the community organizations can take care of it. They don't own it.
The maintenance, though.
The upfront
I
cost.
mean, the upfront
Yeah.
costs, the maintenance, the
I mean,
heater, the
honestly,
propane, the
though, like, we
electricity,
have a
the.
pool and we maintain it, and honestly, it's really not as much as you would think. I
Well,
mean,
not
I think
community.
you would probably have to use
I've run a
chlorine.
big pool.
Community pool is,
I've
yeah,
run one.
there-
But I'm
No.
just saying it's not impossible.
No, it's
That's all I'm saying. It's just,
not
it's not
impossible.
impossible.
no, but
Yeah.
If he was talking about the upfront cost,
Yeah.
we could probably approach $1,000 and maybe
We
like
probably should, yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with you. It's just that the maintenance and liability.
there's a lot
It'd
of
be
maintenance.
cool to
And
see like
then
a
the flip
business
side of that
plan
also is
presented, like
an
if we
employee,
could.
if you guys, sorry to interrupt you,
No,
but there'll be an employee there also, which is another big cost, because you have to have a lifeguard.
I think some of these projects, yeah, we almost need to approach them like a business plan. Like
Right.
this is gonna, and then that would be like a better sell. And then there's not all these, oh, well, what would this cost? Because I have looked up community pools too, and it's pretty cool. But yeah, you almost need to like put it in a way that's like easy to like, yeah, present to like the public and the board. And yeah, but I like that idea. I never thought about that, like a private business, pretty
maintains
much,
it.
yeah. In a way, yeah.
Well, then what would keep a private businesses from just doing it on their own properties? Why does the district need to
Upfront
take that
cost.
on?
It's a recreational. We have to go for a grant, and it's a community benefits. More tourism, more visitors. So it's entire community benefit.
I mean,
Well,
I don't
I
know
would
if a
argue-
pool's gonna bring tourists. I mean, when I think of Shelter Cove, right, like what brings people here? It's the very first national conservation ever. It's still the biggest, right? So who's our target here? Ecotourists, keeping ecotourism alive, also protecting our lands, protecting the wildlife, not having it become a resort sea of concrete. That's what I don't want to see. I do think that we need recreation. We need more things to do for tourists, absolutely. But it has to be the right type of recreation. What about a whale watching park? With hammocks and little binoculars and, with beautiful, landscaping. You know, there's so many things we can do where everyone wins, but I think it's important too not to make it a resort town.
It is a resort improvement district.
It is a resort improvement district, but a
So
resort
let's not
town.
forget that. And then I do understand the ecotourism, but we can't watch whales when it's raining outside. And that's one of the things I do feel like it's very important. We do maybe focus on having some sort of indoor facility because we do live in an area with like inclement weather. And these right now is so hard on business when it's this time of the year. So, and I do, and it would be interesting though. I know they're like doing studies on like who the tourists are. We have no clue who is coming out here. They might not even care that Shelter Cove is,
Well, I will say, as a business owner who does hospitality, I absolutely know who my tourist is that comes and visits me.
well,
And
see, and that would be like the interesting thing is to like gather the data and like just find out because it would just be that would be interesting. Obviously, that's like totally another thing, but like,
And I do want to just add to that. Adding more and more facilities and adding more, I just don't want to be adding more and more onto the district's plate that I know that we really cannot take on for the long term. And then also, and I'm not anti-tourism at all. I was down at the beach the other day and met some people from France and met all these different people from all walks of life, and it's really cool to see them enjoying the beach and just like nature, and they're asking about what it's like to live out here and such. Just because something is good, the district's a public agency, and just because something's good for tourism doesn't mean it is good for the community at whole. So I want to make sure that we're not just putting in more infrastructure just for tourists or just the people that can afford to go use those facilities. Because I'm just going to say, for people who are on fixed, we do have retirement people here and other people who aren't retired yet, who are living on limited income, our property taxes are already really high. And so by just saying, oh, it increases your property value, okay, that's great. But for the greater, for the community members out of the fishbowl, what a lot of those people are seeing is just their property taxes being raised without, they're not going to go down and use that stuff because they're here regardless of that stuff, being here or not. So I just want to make sure that we're clear that, you know, these are all, swimming pools are a great idea.
Yeah, it's not just for the tourism. It's somebody mentioned, I think Todd who mentioned that it was the number one in people's mind. And
we'll
so,
learn that from the survey, right? We'll know.
right. And also, I was trying to come up with a decision framework for it. Like, who's going to pay for it? Is it going to be a grant? We don't want to increase rate. No, we're not going to do increase rate or increase tax burden for other residents, like you mentioned. We're not going to do that. Is a private organization willing to take on this project? Does RID has a land or a lot next to their facility?
Then that would be, okay, I see that then.
For you know, and I know the lot right next to RID owns a lot right next to the lost coast. I'm just a suggestion. I'm not saying that it's it, but there are other properties RID owns, like the one you were talking about, Coral Point, like where the whale watching project next to that, where maybe we could do. And this doesn't have to be a closed facility like a building. It has to be just a pool, and you can do the kind of like a tarp type thing to cover it when people are not using it, and it'll have hours like 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. or something, and that's the only hours it's open. We'll have signs outside, no lifeguard on duty, and the heating is the only expense we have. We could have solar panels to heat it up.
Well, heating, chemicals, right?
Chemicals and maintenance is going to be there, because
Let's get the details of that since we're just trying to learn whether people want it. I think it's great to put it on the survey. Adding that on there. Let's see what people think. I'd be curious.
But for this meeting right now, we're looking at the objectives or the goals, and we're going to put out the goals for the survey.
Yeah, for the survey.
And I liked your idea to see who is
who's responding to the survey.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much our strategic plan right there. Is we're going to let the community tell us, and then we're going to go back and prioritize.
Okay. Does that sound good, everybody?
I think that sounds good. All right. So the one that we're all looking forward to is the sports course. Is the last thing on the
and
discussion item.
Just one thing. And then when we get the survey or for the next meeting, we can then maybe we could at that time pick just to see where
Mhm.
the committee wants to, the individual committee members want to focus on
Mhm.
individually. Does that sound good?
Sounds great.
And that way it gives us enough time to digest everything
Mhm.
for the next, we'll pretty much know, I think, independently, yes.
Oh, sorry, Jerry, go ahead.
Well, no problem. Tesha, I was going to add that if our goal is to, help help the board with their strategic plan, which I'm assuming that's why we've been created.
Yeah.
Maybe one thing we should do is look at these objectives. You got goals, there are 4 goals. You got 22 objectives, and then you got these actions. Maybe what we do, maybe next meeting, if not today, is we take those 20, there are 22 objectives here. We divvy those up. We each volunteer for maybe 4 or 5 to be the lead on. And with a little bit of luck, that wouldn't take long. We just say, who's interested in doing this or that? And realize it's only going to be 4 or 5 each of us. And then in the next meeting and subsequent meetings, we focus on the action items, which is the next column, with that objective, and see how that should be modified or added to or de-emphasized. And then maybe add a 4th column that says next steps, that we'll realize what do we got to do next to flesh this out and get some forward motion on it. So my point is our work item and our product back to the RID board would be a review of the strategic plan to modify, add to, adjust the actions that are listed here with each objective. And we do that by assigning the objectives to each one of us as a lead to discuss at meetings. That's a thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Do you guys want to do that now, or do you want to do it at the next meeting? I do like his idea of divvying it up, and that's kind of what
I think, my opinion is, I love this idea. I think we should do it, but I think we should wait and see what the community says first. And then based on that, we can kind of prioritize who's looking into what objective that would be.
Rather than putting energy into something that
Right
the
now,
community thumbs
exactly.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be my suggestion.
Can I get clarity on what you guys are seeing for this survey?
Yeah, so essentially we're going to ask the objectives that are already withstanding. So we're just, or is it the goals? Yeah, the goals, sorry, not the objectives. The goals, the 4 goals that we have, and then we're going to add in, a little box of what they would like to see in Parks and Rec, and then they can fill that in.
And then will we phrase it, how high of a priority is
Yeah, and then there'll be a scale,
rated 1 to
1 to 10, of what they see, and then they'll have their own field box they can fill in if it's not already present. And then we can kind of take that and go from there. And then also putting in, do they rent? Do they own property? Are they from here? Some sort of thing like that, so we can kind of figure out who wants what from where.
And are we gonna put swimming pool in the, or is that just gonna be like another thing? We gonna put swimming pool on the?
We're gonna throw
As one of
that
the-
into the mire.
I think we
only
should.
guarantee that
I mean,
that
this
will
is,
be filled
yeah,
by everybody.
Just for funsies? Now, may I ask, is the definition of a pool a kid's pool with slides and stuff, or is it a workout pool with lanes? Like, what's the pool vision?
Lane, right?
Not a kid pool,
Yeah,
Let
no.
the community.
not like little games.
We could
and
probably add
slides
a
and
kid
stuff.
pool next to it, or a hot tub next to it, depending on how much. Somebody can take a lead on this and do the research about the grant, and then
But it was more like, let's go exercise, swim some laps.
Yeah, right? Yeah, like, yeah.
I like that better than like
Oh, yeah.
slides
no.
and castles.
Thank you. I would never go.
And if there is and we could even rent it out to private events and stuff like that. If it's a business owns it, or like maintenance of the pool is owned by business, and then we could do that too. And then remove the lanes for private events or whatever.
May I ask the condition of the library, the playroom, and that food pantry in the basement?
There's no food pantry anymore, right?
Yeah.
What's going on with those spaces? Are they healthy? Are they usable? What's the
They're
deal?
all currently being used regularly.
They just need upgrading, really. It's just everything needs
The
shushing.
building itself is the main issue. There's water leaking in several places.
So that's an issue, right?
And it is something that the district's taking seriously and looking at. It's, we do need to be finding the funding for that. I think what's happened in the past is Well, it was, I don't believe that building was really meant for it to be the clubhouse or the community center, but it is the clubhouse now. Quite frankly, back in the day when it was built, there were shortcuts made and they didn't put in proper vapor burying and put in the lower where they had to dig out and put in the lower part of it. They didn't use any vapor barrier or anything, and there's other things that they did wrong that now is leading to major leaks. But at the time, they thought they were saving everybody money. So that's
So
what we're
is it
doing.
in the best interest to create a new building for the long run?
Well, I think what the district can afford is to look at, we can actually, at the time when we were looking at the new community center, we weren't able to expand it going in the direction of where the children's garden is, because there was another thing, there was the volleyball court that had been, which was a grant, and it was, we weren't allowed to use the property for anything else for a certain number of years. Finally, that expired and nobody was playing volleyball. Everybody wanted volleyball and then they didn't play it. So we, and I don't even know that it was a board decision at the time, but for whatever reason, they got rid of the volleyball court, and now it looks like that we can expand into that zone or into that area, although it's going to come down whether or not we can get variances, because now we have the new airport restrictions. And that's going to be all of our projects down there that we're looking at. We're going to need to know if we're going to be able to get our variances moving forward. But it definitely, the redoing the clubhouse, or at least upgrading it, is on the agenda. Or I mean, it's in here.
There's currently $12,000.
There is $12,000. Yeah, for the south wall, which is really.
There's so many grants, so can I ask?
Okay, I am going to just say
what is the process?
Yeah, so with the grants, and of course grants, you know, depending on what grant you're looking at. One thing you have to just know is that grants aren't free money, and the district has to have in their pockets enough to do their in kind, plus be able to fund the project until we start receiving grant money. And our finances, our budget is very tight, just with our monthly costs. And so that's something that I just want to also remind people. Grants are great. Grants for recreation are awesome. But we are also going to be going after other grants for larger infrastructure projects for water and sewer and electric, things that we can't live without here and we cannot be a development without. And so, you know, when we're going for other grants, we might not have the money in our pockets to go for the recreation grants to meet those in-kinds at that time. Hopefully not. Hopefully it'll all flow, but the grants aren't a one size fits all. It's not going to necessarily, I mean, hopefully it just depends on the details of the grants. Really.
There's so many, and there's so many flavors and kinds,
and then just making sure you're looking at the ones for government agencies and public.
Or nonprofit if I'm representing SCARF on a grant.
If you're nonprofit, and then just see how we would be fitting, how the district fits into that. If we're using upfront money.
And I just want to toss on the side note about community center. One thing that's going to help that project ever, if there's more money going for it, is including a pilot lounge. Yeah. That helps with variances. That helps with everything.
And that's how we got.
Don't forget to consider that if you're looking at trying to do anything extra.
Like even for the sports court, I mean, that's next up. But even like for the sports court, if we had said, well, we're going to do a pilot's bathroom in zone 2, that may give us a leeway into being able to operate into zone 5. But it has to do with the airport and airport infrastructure. Okay, so do you have what you need for your notes?
Yep, I got everything.
And you're clear on what we need for the survey?
Yeah, I have that written down.
Does anybody have any other questions about that topic right now? Okay, so we can go ahead.
Yeah, so we're moving on.
Yeah.
So the last item is the sport. And that's just up for discussion. Has everyone read through this? I read through it. Yeah.
I thought I heard Jerry beep in. Jerry, you didn't beep, did you? Okay.
Nope, nope.
All right, let me,
Jerry, what would be a good, what should we be charging for pilot landing fees? What do other people charge?
Well, the typical rate is at least $5, and I've seen it as high as 25. But the going rate seems to be between 5 and 10, and it's usually done on an honor system that's pretty low maintenance. I brought in some example envelopes. Usually you just get an envelope, put your money in it, your end number, and put it in a slot. It's real easy to do and real easy to collect, and most pilots are pretty honest. I mean, they're paranoid of bad karma. So
Is it surprising to you that Shelter Cove doesn't charge, or do most small airports not? Is that normal?
No, it shocks me that we don't charge. We're one of the few airports that I land in. I've landed in hundreds of airports, and we're like about the only one I know of that doesn't charge seriously for an overnight. Now, landing fee is a different story, and I wouldn't advocate that. But an overnighter, we ought to be getting at least $5 per plane, if not more, because almost.
Oh, so you're talking overnight, not specifically landing. You're talking with the 5 to 10 to maybe 20 is overnight.
Yeah,
I was thinking.
exactly. The landing fee is real hard to maintain and to collect. And I just read an article in one of the aviation magazines that argues against it because of safety reasons. That pilots will avoid airports that charge you to land, and they may stretch their range or whatever. So I would suggest that we look seriously on overnight fees, and think in like the $5 to $10 range, but not do landing fees. But those are my thoughts.
Jerry, is it, we could set up QR code easily and then also put it on the RID website. It's pretty simple. And then they could just, on our system, they could pay ahead of time before when they're making flight plans. Instead of envelopes, we could do envelopes too, but I think it'll cause some maintenance issue there.
I don't know. You fly in and envelopes work great. They just like stick it on your plane and it's all self-contained. You just like check a box, kind of like when you go camping at like the state park and then there's a metal box and you just pop it in.
Yep, that's exactly right. And I see that mechanism all over the state, where it's an envelope with a box with a slot and it's locked. You get the envelope, you pull it out like you say, you check it, put your money in it, and throw it in the box. But see, your idea about a QR code would be great as well. I mean, anything we can do to make it easy. I think the point is we have nothing now, and I think most pilots are surprised, quite frankly.
Yeah, well, that's low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Love it.
I would think that a QR code at any level here in the Cove for recreation from tourists in spots at any of our places would be a wise move to go.
We can do that on our trails.
What's that?
We can even do that on our trails.
Yeah. I mean, and it's up to you. You can either donate or you can't, but at least we'd find funding there to start moving some things forward for us.
Yeah.
It was Simi's idea. Good job, buddy.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
Star does?
Yeah.
For what?
I set it up. If they buy art from another law stores, they just QR code.
I would think that would be a thing that we should suggest to the RID, that we should start a QR code that is in several places. You know what I mean? That we can try to start drawing some.
On any recreation spot, whether it's currently free or not.
Yeah, and maybe make a cute little saying about, you know what I mean, we're here, we don't charge a lot, and if you're willing to donate, we're willing to accept or something.
Scarf has a little mailbox on the back of their sign, and every now and then an envelope found in there with money.
Yeah. Okay.
Just, creating a sign with a QR code everywhere, children's playground.
Make it a consistent logoed sign, QR
Please
code.
donate to support
Recreation in the Cove. yes.
Recreation in the Cove.
Shelter Cove.
Yeah, I like that.
And you just scan it, put your credit card, and that's end of story.
That's a great idea, Simi. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, so sports court.
Sports court. We have
I guess the introduction to this, for those who haven't been attending board meetings, is, there's a long type-up, I don't know if you guys have read it, on the action plan. It gives a lot of the history of what's going on with the sports court. I'm just gonna summarize it down to basically where we're at right now is we have a grant, the project's approved project, it's approved for the location right next to the parking lot at the community center. What has to happen now is figuring out how to move forward, and what seems to be the challenge with moving forward is what plan is going to be utilized to move forward. And so it's been heavily discussed at board meetings. It takes up a lot of time at the board meetings. I'm hoping, I'm not sure. I guess we're hoping for a good way to look at how to move forward, I guess.
Yeah.
Your recommendation to the board for that.
Sure. We were talking about the decision framework and our objective. So based on that, is it okay if I ask some questions to Mike since he's here?
if he's up for it. Yeah, for it, Mike.
Okay. So I have 5 questions. How this is going to be affecting the community, and how are we funding, and who's the project lead for this, and is there any cost to the rate increase for the RID customers?
Well, okay, so first question, how it affects the community, everyone has their own opinion. That's pretty subjective. But from my perspective, it's both for community members, primarily for community members, because the vast majority of the community has come out in support of this. But it's also a tourist draw. What was the second question? How is it going to be funded?
How is it funded?
So there's an existing grant, and as Kesha points out, there's a little bit of challenge because the grant in general is you incur the cost and then you get reimbursed. Okay, so there needs to be a certain amount of funding in place. However, there is opportunity for a 50% advance. To get that advance, you have to show your shovel ready. To be frank, that spot is already shovel ready. Something else that would help get that grant is if we had we were a little farther along on the permit, because then you can show, hey, we've got a building permit. By the way, getting a building permit does not obligate you to build it, or does not preclude scaling down the project in the future. But getting a building permit will help with getting an advance on the grant. And the rig component of that was an approved $62,000 cost share that was approved a few years ago, of which $43,000 has already been spent. Well, actually more like 45, 46 now. And so that's basically the rig cost share. And currently there's no anticipated additional rig expense. And so it's a matter of how well you manage the budget. And what has been proposed is basically you go a little bit in phases, and if all of a sudden you're looking like some of the costs, because you never know exactly what the costs are going to be, right? There's no construction project in history where you know exactly to the penny. Some things you can save money on, some things end up costing more than you anticipated. So you track costs, and then if necessary, you might scale back the project. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so 2 questions. One is, like you mentioned, there's going to be extra cost, and are there going to be other fundraising, or is it going to be a liability on the RID customers?
Okay, so what I said was I don't anticipate any additional costs above and beyond the cost share. Now, certainly it would be helpful to have, and this is what I see the community group role is to look for grants to support any ongoing activity. There's certain things we've done to reduce, for example, maintenance costs. Maintenance on an asphalt court is more frequent than maintenance on a concrete court. Concrete court, you almost almost need no maintenance. Maybe every 10 years you resurface. Asphalt court, you have to resurface every few years. Okay. Resurface meaning seal and paint lines, and because asphalt is not as durable as concrete. So by going with concrete, we've significantly reduced ongoing maintenance costs. So hopefully that addresses. We're not talking about a lot more maintenance costs, by the way.
$119 for a 5-gallon bucket that Kurt says we get 2
Well,
years out of.
That's exaggeration. But you might want to.
Phenomenal.
The surfacing is actually sophisticated surfacing. So let's say you want to do that every 10 years. That's going to be, or you don't do it, you just play on a faded court. But if you really, to properly do it, if you want to redo the surface every 10 years, you're going to need another $10,000, $15,000, okay? With a proper surface. Go ahead.
Joshua is making a point.
Go ahead.
Oh, you're done.
I'm sorry, I didn't get your third and fourth, or fourth and fifth question.
You answered. So we were thinking about how are we going to fund? How is the community going to be benefited? Who's the lead on the project? You know, you are taking the lead, and your group of 5 volunteers.
Yeah, really, this is the general manager is the lead
Supposed to be the lead.
Yeah.
Oh,
progressing this project. Okay, so it's a general manager under the direction of the board.
Right, I could find it.
that's all my questions.
Okay.
And so let's say if you were to come up with a decision framework,
Okay.
if you were to come up with a decision framework, maybe based on the fact, should we vote on this, or how does that work?
As far as what recommendations to bring to the board, I mean, I think that there's.
And I still have questions for you, Mike.
Sure, Tom.
Do you have a layout of the courts themselves? All I'm seeing is squares here. I'd like to see more of what, I mean, are we gonna have one set of horseshoes, or are we gonna have 2? The pickleball court, I do a lot of stuff out there, and I'm certainly in favor of support for my stuff that I do, the tournaments that me and Davey do. I just wanna make sure that this is all gonna fall within a parameter that we can still use, and I'm sure that it probably is. I just want to see it. I want to see how close the basketball court is to the fence.
Right.
You know what I mean? Those type of things are important.
We'll actually have all those details in about a week or so.
Okay.
I mean, we have drafts. Cool.
And
And
if
we're
you
working
could
on that.
Get that to us, I'd
To
appreciate
answer
it.
that one question, the 2 horseshoe pits that are there
Mhm.
are almost in identical form.
Yeah.
Going to be
Cool.
Closed up.
Committee chair,
Mhm.
should we probably do a community town hall?
I got another question for us before we move
Todd had
on. The backside of this is parking. This has been, for big events, that has been used many times. My question is, now that we're pushing all this around, is this back area that's never driven on going to be drivable for our people? Or are we going to have to build a driving somewhere for them to drive around to? You know what I mean? So that area can be used. I don't think that this is a very expensive thing. I just question it because I know when we have an event, if Lyle would have been there yesterday, that parking lot would have been full, and everything that we had here would have been full. You know what I mean? That happens here, especially when we lose people like that.
Is
So
the lot above Jippo open space, or is that Jippo where we have the
no,
farmers
that's-
market?
But I mean, I'm sure they wouldn't be like opposed to having community parking when they're not open. And I think like honestly, like, people park all over this place. Like I think if you have a 2-wheel drive car, you will just, park somewhere else. Or
Well, I think it's a legitimate question. The community center does get very full, and we use that
I
back
mean,
spot
if
for
two-wheel
parking.
cars park there all the time.
Cornhole
you
for
know what I mean?
Cancer, we wouldn't have. I mean,
Yeah, we use that.
yeah, we use that whole space.
so that.
So the overflow parking area, is that just going to continue to be grass and people just kind of go in there to park, or how
Well,
much?
I guess RD could mow it or weed whack it.
I mean, we could just.
Yeah. I mean, they did during the summer.
This year because
Yeah.
it was supposed to be a
Yeah.
fire training for
Right.
a burn.
That's why we didn't. I think it really goes down to, I like the design. Don't get me wrong. We have a set of engineered plans that we've paid for. We can't afford the NBA size basketball court. We can't afford that. That's what SHN was told we wanted, So that's why they came up with that. What we can afford, even though it would probably, we will have to put a little bit of money towards it, even a high school sized basketball court. If we need to get this project as close to the 177,000 as we can. That's what the district can afford. As much as I like this, I don't know that we're going to be able to afford it. And my other thing is getting back to variances. If we're talking about moving the horseshoe courts into zone 5 and having regular scheduled, and we're supposed to be doing this now. We do need to look at getting variances for things, because even for something as simple as the horseshoe courts, we are going to need a variance for it.
So what does that entail? Because you keep saying it as if it's like the most daunting thing ever.
We have to go to the county and apply for our variance. And then it may come back that they say no. It means going to whoever's above them after that, which would probably be the supervisors.
Yeah, Board of Supervisors has to vote, I think.
Yes.
We need 3 votes.
When you go to the variances, we could go and we could bring historical documents as to how the district's been operating in that area. And that would also increase our chances of receiving variances. We had the opportunity to get a variance for the sports court back before they implemented the new airport regulations. And I know everybody's probably tired of hearing me say this, but at the time, the planning main guy, John Ford, came down, did a site inspection of our recreation down there with Jack and Justin, the GM at the time. And he was told that we were getting this grant and how would that affect the grant. And they were told that it wouldn't affect the grant because they could see that we already had horseshoe courts here. And at the time, I believe the volleyball court was still up. The bocce ball courts are still here. So, and we had our clubhouse. So he said that we would be grandfathered in. It didn't matter. However, nothing was put into writing. And now the county is saying, oh, no, you can't do anything there. But the district hasn't formally gone for variances with this project yet.
Can I interrupt?
Yes.
1 second. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, shouldn't we just let this go towards the permitting process and then, just let the board find, or, RID find out? It's like all this oh, what if, we don't know. That is why we need to move the project forward and find out if there are barriers.
Well, we do, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Can I finish my question for a second? You have done a significant amount of work on this. Do you have answers to those 2 questions? 175,000 is only available from RID.
Well, let me clarify what she's saying.
Yeah.
The grant is 178,000.
178, yeah.
And the RID cost share was 62.
We've already done 45.
Of which 45 has already been spent. So you're talking about roughly 200,000. Now, certainly something can be built for 200,000. We had actually proposed two pads. We may have to scale that back to 1 pad. Okay. So does that answer your question?
Yes. The second question was variances. Do you have any experience or talking to anybody in the county?
Well, I do, because I talked to the county and they said, good luck. All right. Tasha's right. There wasn't a formal letter presented by the Resort Improvement District to the Aviation Department. I should point out it's not 100% in the control of the County Board of Supervisors. There's FAA involved.
Yes.
And in my opinion, a variance is a huge stretch. I know people have said, well, we can trade a pilot's lounge for a section of Zone 5. No, their issue is these are regulations that apply to airports all over the country. And if they give RID a variance, all of a sudden everyone's going to be asking for variance. So they told me, no, don't, at least for this project, for the sports court project, variance is not necessary, and move forward without that. Now, strategically, and that's what I see your role as long-term strategic planning, not short-term micromanagement. Okay, so strategically, I think that should be done. that you should go and request a variance for these long-term projects. And, yeah, good luck.
Would that answer?
Have fun with that.
Have fun with that. Yeah, I think it is true that the aviation, that's the only reason why we need a variance really is because of the aviation part of it. And when the new regulations were going in, I believe it was the only two airports that were giving options for going for the variances before was Shelter Cove and one in McKinleyville somewhere, I believe. I'll have to check back in with, maybe Sue can help answer that question. But we were given the option of going for those variants, because they're like, well, yeah, these don't really apply to you, so you could go for the variances. Unfortunately, the advice that came back from the general manager after his meeting with John Ford was that don't worry about it, we're going to be grandfathered in, so we don't have to do that. So for like you were saying, long term, we should be going for variances. With this project, it is true that there's not for this project, but that's because we didn't just go in and show them the SHN plans that we already had designed. We went in, it was at your request that we show a drawing of SHN and then this drawing, which apparently fits into zone 2 and not zone 5. So the county said, well, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot because here you're showing us that you have a design that doesn't fit into, or that fits into zone 2 and doesn't go into zone 5. So of course they picked this one because it doesn't, but this wasn't our engineered plans that we paid for. It was, now had we just gone in with the SHN plans, they would have been like, okay, well, you're going to need to go for a variance, and then we could have started that process a lot sooner. My question is like, I would love to see, honestly, I would love to see that zoning, like where it's surveyed, because the court's definitely going to be in zone 5. And I know that some people don't think that is an important point, but if we are condoning recreation in that, the district is condoning the recreation and they're going to be doing the horseshoe courts, we have to do it legally. And part of, even with what has been approved with this plan, it's saying, the aviation person is saying that we can't do group activities and we can't do tournaments or raising funds. So that's why I'm not sure why this gets under people's skin sometimes, but as a government agency, we have to do things by the book. And it's time, maybe the district hasn't always operated that way, but we have more people coming in the Cove. We have more eyes on us now than ever before. So it might take a little bit longer, but we do have time with this grant. And in my opinion, we need to be doing things correctly and making sure that we can, okay, if the first step of this project is to do I think the part of the, is doing the horseshoe courts first, I think in your plan, then we need to at least be looking at submitting for the horseshoe courts.
Sorry.
But the horseshoe courts are just a pit. You don't need a permit for a pit.
Exactly.
And so it's like you're kind of forgetting, like, and I get, like, yes, government regulation and we should be following, but like you also need to like remember that this is a community project. We're not saying, it's like you imply that there's going to be Tesha, like we did talk about that at the last board meeting. And you were reading from the thing, and didn't we say, like, then pretty much you can't do any events at the clubhouse? Like, is that what you want to see? You want to just tear down everything? That's what you're implying. Then if you're saying all of a sudden now the rules apply to the pickleball court, but not the clubhouse, it's like.
Exactly. We need to start.
I know, Tesha, but like you also need to understand, like, don't you understand that people in the Cove, like, want to gather? And that maybe one of the reasons that we all live out here is because we actually believe in, like, maybe not so much, like, we don't want to be regulated. And honestly, like, I don't want to be regulating everyone in the Cove. Like, it's like, I have chickens, like, you're not allowed to have, it's like, so it's like, come on, like, where do we stop? So all I'm saying is, like, we have two plans. We have the SNH one, which has all those unnecessary sidewalks. This one's actually cool because we can do it in phases and make sure that we can stay under budget. And I think honestly, that's like the biggest thing is like, We want to stay under the
May
budget.
I ask one thing?
Mhm.
One more thing for Mike. Have you done any work on the permitting part?
What's that?
Have you done anything towards the permitting of
Yes,
this?
and so let me touch on that. We have passed the planning phase. We have passed the coastal development permit.
Huh.
That's actually has been granted. And
With the county, with the John
county.
Ford?
Yes. The next step is a building permit, but part of that is to resolve this issue at the board level. Is I don't think it's
Yeah.
your committee's role to
We're not
decide,
It's
you know, what design is being used. I would point out that the reason it gets under some people's skin, Tesha, is because you seem to be imposing things on this new sports court that have never been imposed. You said, okay, let's do this horseshoe pit, has to be legal. Well, the existing horseshoe pit was put in there without permits.
And we were
Without-
told it was grandfathered in. So that
No,
getting that in writing does
Okay.
protect the district.
If you let
But
me finish.
Okay, I
We do golf tournaments, we do cornhole tournaments, we do all these tournaments, and now you're saying, well, we may not want to do pickleball tournaments or basketball tournaments. Fair enough, but that is a later decision. Later on, you could say, no, we don't want you to do that tournament because it's against this. But that doesn't mean you don't build it in the first place. That means you
All right.
decide how to proceed.
Jessica, why don't you go, and then I have a few
I was
things to
gonna say
say
an
too.
important point of information, all those other facilities were in place before those restrictions were made.
Mhm.
So
Thank
those
you.
restrictions are not on the community center and the golf course, they are on the pickleball court.
Well,
So, that's just a point of information for you guys to understand, just so you know.
Yes.
Like these are
I-
two.
So it's
agree
not
on the
changing the
construction,
rules,
but
the
Right.
rules
not
are
based on
changed with
tournaments.
the.
They're evolving.
land use.
Yeah. Well, and I guess my big question, especially because for pioneers, we love to use that. I mean, we use cornhole for cancer. We love being in the grass, playing bags, but also with this stuff, I mean, if we can't have gatherings, that's going to be kind of a waste of space, right? Like if we can't have tournaments, if it's just one-on-one, what is that? How is this serving?
I'm with
the
you
community.
100%. Somewhere, the RID's got to make up their mind what they're going to do down there. And I
Yeah.
hate to say it because you guys can never go against the law, so we know what's
Yeah.
going to go down there, and it's going to be the end of anything new that's coming up here. And I hoping that I'm going to keep my 3 that I have. But it's one of those things that if we're going to play by the rules, we're going to play by the rules.
Yeah.
There'll be no more. There'll be no more when people die having the wakes there. There'll be no more weddings there. There'll be no more. You guys got to make that decision because
We do.
this sort of thing, I don't want to do it. No, it's either going to be done or it's not going to be done. The RID needs to make that decision.
It has a government agency using money. It has to be done by the book.
Yeah, it does.
So
I
that
agree.
might need to come, that is a decision that the board has to make, and it's not an easy one, but by
When you say
doing it by the
No,
book,
no, wait a second. I want to stop. Now you're saying that we're not going to have any community events in the community center anymore. That's
unless
what
we
you're
get
saying.
if we can get our variances,
Again,
and that's,
I'm just saying, I mean, it can either be done or not done, because we can't move forward until we know that.
yeah,
I
this
agree
community
with you.
center
We
is
might
Community
as
center's
well just go
grandfathered in, right?
forward and see
Yeah,
what
because
goes
that
on.
was before.
I'm pretty sure we played pickleball back in 2004. I think I remember that, just never mind.
it didn't even exist.
So let's rephrase, right? Because
We
the
find
community center is grandfathered in because that was
Yeah,
done
it's already
before
permitted,
these
it's already
new.
done, it doesn't have those restrictions. It does have a number of people restrictions on it, and it is actually lower
60
in the
people.
day than it is at the
Correct.
nighttime
It's daytime.
because of,
Not at night.
What did you
it's
just say?
lower in the daytime
Oh, the
than it is
number.
at the nighttime because of, I guess, airplanes landing during the day,
Yeah.
and they're not supposed to land at night. I don't remember the exact numbers. It is in our policy. I can look them up and tell you what the amount of usages that are legally allowed at the community center. I want to say it's like 16, 80 and 100. I don't know, something like that.
Right.
But no, we don't. I mean, generally, I don't know.
Well, and especially with any new build, just in my professional experience, that's when you have to do everything, like you say, by the book, especially with government money and grant money. So I would just be concerned that either A, this gets shut down, or B, becomes a legal issue down the line. That would be my concern. not that horseshoes are a big deal, but I think everything else is kind of, I mean, this is a big project.
It's really not.
It's 7,500
It's a
employees on
big-
it.
it's a concrete pad for the community to play a sport on. Like, come on, you guys. Like, I don't mean to,
Here.
like, I have to leave in like 5 minutes, but like, really, this, I mean, how are we gonna get anything done? Like, that's what I'm worried about. This is just gonna turn into like another, like, you know, if this is what we're gonna do, is bicker about like tiny little things instead of actually getting things done for the community, then this
I think
is also
knowing
gonna,
whether we can actually host events and tournaments on here is a big deal for
we
the
can't
community.
host events there.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
so there. So it's just for
one-on-one
playing.
play.
Exactly. That's not there. Done.
Trisha, is it okay?
Well,
we
they
do
call it
vote on
something
this
else.
one?
It isn't a
fundraiser,
fundraiser,
it
it isn't a tournament, it's a whatever. Exactly. It's just like,
Oh, sorry. So,
no, we're not.
okay. So I was gonna say, should we just do a vote on this issue based on the information we gathered? We do the recommendation to the board whether to do this or not.
I don't think that's
No,
our
because
capacity.
that's not
That's not our capacity.
Yeah,
We can
Oh.
make
what we do,
recommendations.
yeah.
We can make a recommendation, has a committee on which direction to go, doesn't mean they have to take it.
Should
Well,
we
it'd be
move
sort
it
of silly
forward?
for our first recommendation for them to
Money
turn down.
spent and time and effort, and it's something that people want.
Yeah, I mean,
Let's
these
keep
people have
moving
been
it
working on
forward.
For 5
There's
years.
no
We've
reason
done
to put the kibosh
it.
on this.
Like, it's like.
Oh, I don't think we should put the kibosh on it. I'm just curious as the public.
Here we go. I'm not putting the kibosh on any of this. I understand the community wants it, then the community is going to get it. Right now, we're looking at the designs and it's going down what can we afford. What we can afford is, like I said, shrinking down that court. That's the only thing we're going to be able to afford, even for the long term. I mean, maybe the pickleballers can raise money and do a second court, but that's going to be further down the line. And again,
That's fine if we do it in
and that's
phases.
fine. So I just don't want to see the district overextending itself into a project that isn't going to be meeting what the community is going to be using it for. And if we just go for the variances to be able to use it the way we want to use it, like, I don't understand why there's such pushback on that.
Can't we do both? Can't we do the variance at the
Yes.
same time as everything's
Yes.
going forward?
Exactly. It's just like we need to like just get
So then let's
started.
do that.
Otherwise, and
What
that's
is
what we're
applying for a variance? Have we started the apply for a variance?
No, we haven't.
conversation?
I think you asked if it was doable and they said, good luck, or it's a high bar, right?
Yeah, but that's like down the line. We're talking about just getting the pickleball. Like, let's just start with getting it permitted with the county. And then putting out the bit. I mean, honestly, this isn't even stuff we really need to be talking at this committee because it is what the
Well, it's on the agenda.
but it's agenda for the next, and we've been discussing it at the last RAD meeting. And so, like, this is the problem with boards is that you end up not getting anything done. It's just like,
I disagree with you here. I think if we vote right now, something will get done.
but we can't.
Yeah, but there's no reason to argue back and forth.
Yeah.
It's one against, it's four, probably four, so you know what I mean? At a point somewhere, we have to stop arguing and start voting. Because I think that all of us have in mind, what, or am I wrong? You need more information, you need more information. Let's either say that we want to do it, we recommend it, or we don't. Do we?
Is that our capacity?
That's
Is that what we're here
We
for?
recommend or we don't.
Sure, for you guys, all of a sudden, in one meeting,
No.
to be out here saying, we don't want to do this.
No one's saying that.
Say that.
But I still think we're in the collecting data phase.
I think we all are on the other side. I think
This is our first meeting, so I think we're all gathering information and we're all figuring out what is going on and what our questions are and what the accurate information actually is. And I don't think there needs to be any arguing. I think we can all be respectful that we all deserve to have the information we want.
And things can move forward parallelly.
Yeah.
Parallel. Things can happen at once.
Go ahead.
This is me being Terry. Terry has a comment.
Go ahead, Jerry.
I wanted to ask Mike if he knew if that fence has to be 8 feet high. It seems to me that might be aesthetically kind of undesirable. Have that tall of a fence. It would look pretty institutional down there. This fence
the fence 8 feet high. The fence has to be 8 feet high. It looks like it'd be undesirable to see such a high fence there.
Yeah, I think that's it. That's an appropriate goal. You know, what kind of aesthetics you guys want to see. Most court fences are 10 feet high. We went down to 8. And to be frank, if there was a later decision that we don't want a fence there at all, you could have courts without a fence. It just means you're chasing balls. That's all.
And my advice, just Mr. Jackson, saying, whenever you're playing basketball, you're going to want an 8-foot fence because a 6-foot fence will catch someone right in the face if they lose their balance and are stumbling into it. So that's my push on that. I'm concerned about that, by the way. You noticed that in my previous, how much room we're going to have between the backstops. And I haven't wondered why we're even having a basketball court on there anyway.
Because that was actually what the community wanted, was a basketball court, or a part of it. I mean, that was.
I've heard that too. A lot of people want to play
A lot of people
basketball.
want to see basketball.
Yeah.
And volleyball, so that's why we sort of.
We had a volleyball court out there, did nothing.
Yep,
Just
and they
saying.
took it away, and that was
Just saying, yeah, I
another
mean,
grant.
Yeah.
I'm in favor of Todd's idea of putting it for a vote for the committee. And
So, moving forward.
or make a recommendation to the board. And if it's yay or nay, then we could go back. That's not a decision anyway for the board. That's a recommendation only. Might as well get the vote done and move on to the more important topic.
So what would we be voting on?
Maybe Jerry or Jeff.
No, I mean, right now, I was just thinking on personal observation level. So I think part of the success of the horseshoe courts is because somebody actually organized this event to happen. And why the volleyball carts were not successful is nobody started volleyball league. The only way something's going to be successful is if there's people who host events, get people excited and motivated to do them. Pickleballers have a great group of people who are excited about their sport and they're regularly organized and they utilize it. And same thing with horseshoes. That happens with that. You know, the cornhole thing happens at Jibbo because they have the facility and they offer an event for it. The only way I see any facility being successful is if there is usage that's encouraged and motivated.
Which we would need to get approval for that. We would need to be going for variances.
Well, then let's do it.
So I just don't know what are you voting on the design? Are you voting on moving a blanket, moving forward with the project? Because that's there. We're moving forward with the project.
Move forward or not, kill it or do it. Because the complaint for last 5 years is this project is going on, lingering around 5 years. So many things that happened.
Is applying for that variance a helpful thing to keep it moving forward, or is that?
I mean, it can happen without the variance, but I think that, yeah, variance is good for long
For the one that makes sense.
Well,
I think I mean, I guess what I would say, is like, so what should we recommend, like a plan that we see, like,
moving forward with the plan and also moving forward with going with the variances. So even if even if we went with your plan, even if it's not what we paid for, moving forward with this, moving forward with the project, but moving forward with the variances so that we can actually hold the type of community events that we want to hold there legally. And then we can use that whole area for recreation.
great.
That's kind
I
of,
agree, okay.
I don't know, as far as whatever design you want to do, it just needs to make sure that it is engineered for that spot, which I know
Let's do
you're
the
working on.
realistic, little more in the budget, not overly designed, redefined plan.
And just one, and so I guess that would be, and just one thing I want to add. This committee is about getting into the weeds of these projects on certain levels, because part of the other inspiration of this committee was to be able to have open, frank discussions about our district projects and getting into the details of it, so that we're not having to sit there and do that at the bigger meetings. But anyway.
Also, on the same note, maybe nominate somebody from the board here as a lead. You want to be the lead in this one?
For the
to the specific pickleball, and then that person can collect more information, educate us, the committee, and then we could.
I would be happy to take that
The
on.
goal is, like, this has been going on for so long. Actually, there is going to be a vote at the next RID meeting, so we're like past that point,
Yeah, we are.
Okay, good.
which is exciting.
We can make the recommendation, we can make
Yeah.
a recommendation on what.
But
I would just say we recommend going forward with the variances, the submitting the plan.
and with the
Modified, not overly engineered.
yeah, that where we can like control, or not we, the general manager can control the cost and, yeah.
More
that's what I
realistic.
agree. Yeah. And that's like kind of a bummer sometimes. Like sometimes you have a sunk cost. Like we don't use the H&N plans. Like, it just is also something we need to learn from is like, if we're going to have someone to like engineer, we really need to be on top of what we want. So what happened is originally they built us an NBI size basketball
I read
court.
the whole.
And so no one caught that, which is unfortunate. So it's just like, yeah.
It wasn't that nobody caught it, that's what they were asked to do. But one of the things and this is where, and why I do get in the weeds on this, is because it's like, okay, you're saying we don't need the walkway all the way around, but they would be, and maybe we could do it, I don't know, maybe we could do it in the future, but it would be nice because for ADA, for people in wheelchairs, so they don't have to go cut through courts, they could actually go around and access to where they would be playing. So yes, it's more than it just being nice. It's like being more inclusive, and that's where I don't want to see corners being cut. Is if it's going to be just at the expense of somebody that may need those sidewalks around the perimeter or have a better
Accessibility.
yeah.
Mhm.
So that's why I mean, yeah, we can get, anyway.
We are recommending to move forward, right?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so.
I'll make a motion to move forward with the Mike Bruno plan of attack while also looking into variances, because I'm totally interested in the variance.
And I agree with that, but I will add the addition of the variances being submitted with the plans. Does anybody want to second that?
Well, okay, but here's the thing. Oh well, you guys have to.
No, because I think we'll get caught up on the variances thing again.
Because I don't even know what that
And-
means.
Find out? We're just doing it to find
But
out.
I wanna do it if it means,
Right.
well, because she was saying to submit the variances, like we have permitted, or we have plans to actually like, that we could submit to the county for, putting the pickleball and the basketball and the horseshoe all together, but we don't really even know what we need for the variances. So it's like, okay, like I would say like, yes, we move forward with the plans and then also like figure out a plan for the variances. I don't even know what that involves, like, do you know what it involves?
Right? We
Anyways, it's
have
just
what
like-
the zone is, what we can't do, and then we're asking for that to be changed. That's the variance.
No,
But these are FAA things and they can take years. And
we're
so
not saying don't submit for the permit. We're saying do
Okay,
that,
well,
but at
when
the
you say
same
with-
time, also submit the variances the same time as the permit. That way we get an answer. That's what I'm saying.
But
I mean,
what they're gonna say
I
is
mean,
that they
I
don't.
think like the variances are kind of like, this is gonna keep coming up, so I don't know why we're gonna attach it right now. Like if we're gonna do anything down
Better
here,
to
like-
know now than later. I mean, I would rather know now as a nonprofit who hosts a lot of community
It's all
events.
about begging for forgiveness or asking for permission.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm down for
Can I
all
ask Mike one more question?
Mhm.
you're down with asking for permission?
Yeah. Can I ask Mike one more question? So for the permitting, what you have for the planning department, that's valid, right? County approved it. So you
The
take,
design of their plan.
The next step is for them to approve that, the detailed engineering drawings.
okay,
But, I mean, the variance, you can say move forward with the variance and move forward with the permit. But the variance is not required for the permit.
correct.
Right.
That's all.
Right.
So
Right.
You don't,
So the variance, we don't just want to do this one. We want to also increase the
trying to-
capacity of the community clubhouse and other limitations and all that.
Not necessarily, more that whole lot and.
So if planning department approves the permit to build something and then you go to building permit, that means county is approved it, right?
the variance is not a decision by the building and planning.
Got it, okay.
That's a decision by the.
Supervisor. Or the aviation.
It's an aviation zone.
So we would have to go, yeah, we'd have to go through that.
Aviation and what did you say, Tasha?
And
FAA.
the Humboldt County supervisors have, I think, the ultimate authority, even over the aviation guy.
I think FAA has the ultimate.
Yeah, I understand it's the aviation department, but
They have a director of aviation, but they work in coordinate.
Mhm.
I paid first.
Yeah,
So
that makes
a
sense.
Federal variance, not.
Yeah,
Yeah, so you kind of want to have like your stuff together.
So maybe then the
And then
motion,
we require, I've done permitting for Canvas Farms and Garberville Airport Zone, and they did go through the FAA, but they had to hire a person, an engineer, to go through and do all these, like, angles and, I don't know, all sorts of stuff, and it was costly to the cannabis growers. Yeah.
maybe for
Does
the,
the RID have any of those documents already on hand that would be
No, we've
needed
never
for
done
this?
a variance. This was just in my work.
The RID has never done a variance.
not down in
Not
that.
in a phase.
No,
Not
because
that I'm aware of.
with the community center that we were designing originally, the reason why it was being allowed was because it had an airport, or I mean, it had a pilot's lounge attached to it.
Okay.
So they were
Oh,
going
that's
to let
right.
us,
So if
but we didn't
included
have,
pilot
but
lounge in there-
we didn't have these extra added airport restrictions at that time. That these are fairly new restrictions. But again, I think we have a pretty good case of getting them since they had already offered them to us right before they implemented them. We were just, the board was given, in my opinion, the wrong advice from the general manager at the time. And he didn't get anything in writing from John Ford or.
so yeah, go ahead.
In my opinion, it's sufficient just to say, moving forward with trying to get a variance. Okay, because they're two separate issues, right?
Mhm.
Move forward with the permit and move forward with.
Getting recreation variances.
Because they're not going to be submitted to the same entity.
No, they're separate.
So how about then we just make a clause to satisfy, your point about being liable for legal issues as long as the county permits it.
Well, I mean, the aviation guy has already, on what has been submitted with this plan thus far, and he's just saying no group activities.
Mhm.
And I would like to see that changed.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, no group activities, meaning that
No
I-
tournaments, no.
there is a limit.
Yeah. Oh, and it's
All
not
group
over
activities.
We don't want tournaments or.
Well, not the old ones, not the, no more,
I don't know, we have
um,
clarification on it.
hangover tournament, no more Irish games.
It's for development permit. It's a restriction in it and the coastal development permit to not allow for competitive events and.
So maybe you
there's
don't
no
use that.
grandfathering in on that.
Mm-mm.
No, it's
Sound like
it'll
it.
be tied to the permit. It's tied to the coastal development permit for the sports court specifically. That's where the restriction is coming from that we're talking about currently. Doesn't relate to anything else up there.
And but if we're gonna be moving the horseshoe courts, my concern, then that would be a new thing. It wouldn't be grandfathered in. So that's why I'm saying we should go for the variance.
We could all agree on, as long as they could get a permit and we move forward with it.
Well, I think we're moving forward with it anyway. All I'm saying is, yeah, let's go ahead and move forward with the permit, like I think we all agree we're gonna do. And then on top of that, let's try to move forward with these variances and try to get this resolved. So we can use it for what the community needs to use it for, rather than
And if we don't
individuals.
get the variance, we just can't have tournaments.
We can't do anything community-wise, and that's gonna not be what the
It's worth
community
trying.
wants, but,
Yeah.
It's gonna be what it is.
Kind of slightly reference, before I forget, we're back to the QR codes. I'm gonna make sure that the RAD can accept donations in that word sort of way with our accountants. I'm not positive if that's something we can do legitimately. I mean, maybe we can, I have no idea.
A step fee.
But I'll have to figure what that is, if that entails, and if the RAD can't do it, then I'll bring that information back to you, and perhaps one of the nonprofits can take on accepting donations for maintenance.
That would be great.
Well, I know if it's an inconvenience.
Perfect.
And if you need any technical help with setting it up, happy to help.
All right, so you wanna do we wanna make a move?
So do we wanna make a move to go forward with the permit and the variation separately, as they're two separate issues?
Did we make motions on this or not?
Yes. And then we can just,
Or we
or do we
We don't
not need to
really
do
have
that
to.
tonight?
Recommendation.
Just put it in the notes? Okay,
So we recommend.
perfect.
So we
We got that?
do
All right.
agree on that.
Going
So
forward.
any unfinished business before this meeting is adjourned?
Can I, maybe for a food for thought for next
Yeah.
meeting, when we have a community forum, can we have guidelines, kind of similar guidelines about 3-minute speaking time? Because in the community town hall, there could be some people take a lot of
Yes,
time.
I agree.
So we may want to work on some sort of decision framework there too.
Yeah.
And maybe a moderator, and who would
Mhm.
that be? And kind of like, that would be helpful.
Absolutely. Let's start thinking about that and when we want to do it too.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like maybe end of February or beginning of March.
End of the quarter, end of March.
Yeah, maybe like end March. That sounds kind of good. Yeah.
So our next meeting will be when? The
Let's
last.
see.
We do it the last Thursday of this month, or are you moving it all the way to February?
Let's do February. Yeah. So that would be the 27th.
If this is free.
Okay, are we gonna?
Oh, yeah, for
So
sure.
we put every
Yep.
Airbnb.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yes. Anything else? And we're all good? All right. Meeting's adjourned. See you on the 27th.
Thank you.
Folks, stop.
Jerry, what you got? What you got, Jerry? Go ahead.
I guess
We didn't hear you.
I
Wait.
guess I'm amazed. I guess, don't we ever vote on anything? Like we had a recommendation going to the RID board. Don't we go through any sort of formal policy to vote on it as a group or not?
Well, we're being told we don't have to, but
Discussion mode, we don't have any other action items. Action items are the only things that get voted upon. So currently, we're in a discussion phase. I think my understanding, the decision or the direction from the board is that they make the decisions and they're open to recommendations and advice from the committee. That's the way I understand it. So whether you guys can vote amongst yourselves non-formally, yes, I suppose.
I think that's what we should follow.
It just
Go
seems
ahead.
odd that it just seems odd that we just had a lot of discussion about a recommendation relative to the sports court. It almost seemed like it was two-part recommendation, but we never formalized it. We never voted on it. It just seemed like it was a group discussion, and somehow that's going to get carried over to the RID board. I just find it amazing that we're not following any sort of parliamentary procedure here as a group. I'm flabbergasted. I for one wouldn't have voted for those recommendations, but none of that's taken account of. Are we
Yeah.
proceeding? Are we proceeding correctly as a committee?
I think I have some of the same questions, Jerry. I think I'm appreciative of your patience with us. I do think we probably will need to get, so we're all on the same page, even if it's an informal vote, that we do informal votes from here on out, because then it'll be more clear. The recommendation we were getting from staff was that we didn't have to do formal voting because we're really not in charge of making decisions. But I think you're right, Jerry, in that if we do just an informal vote amongst ourselves, then it'll be more clear as to where people stand with the committee's recommendation. And then also the board would be able to see okay, well, whether something was being brought to them, and if there were people that may have disagreed with that, that would be in the record. So I think you're right. This is our first committee meeting. It's my first time being on a committee like this, and it's Jessica's first time also as staff. And so, yeah, I think moving forward, it would be a good idea to like what we just did, but do more of a formal vote is what Jerry's asking, so that it's more clear, because he said he wouldn't have voted for that. And it would have been nice to know that. Instead, we kind of skipped him and that feedback. So
Shall we do a vote?
well, we
I have
already
to go.
we
I
had-
have a meeting.
and we
in town,
adjourned the
so-
meeting
Yeah.
already.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next time. We'll do that going forward.
We'll definitely, we'll look at doing that
Yeah, absolutely.
going forward.
Quantify it.
Yeah.
Again.
We didn't ask you.
Sorry, Jerry. Don't quit our committee.
No problem. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Jerry.
Thank
All right.
I think he's right.
I thought it was. What are the action items for us to